Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm talking Taiga keys from Pittsburgh Modular. This is a fun analog synth. I've had it in the studio for a good 3 months, since I think early April. And this is actually my third one. So I've definitely had some issues with the quality control. I'll talk more on those type of details later on in the video, but I just want to say right off the bat, I really like this keyboard. It's a very fun sound palette to work with. Quick shameless plug, if you enjoy this content and you want to support the channel beyond it, like and subscribe, consider using my affiliate links below. They directly support the channel. Now this is not going to be a video manual, so I'm not going to go through every detail that's in this keyboard. I'm going to talk about my experience with it over the past few months. When I saw last year's model without the keyboard get announced, I wasn't interested in it. But this layout right here spoke to me because it's more spread out, it's easier to grab these knobs and all that. And that's what I appreciate about this for like a performance side of things. I just feel like everything's really obtainable right in front of you. Because you have these 3 oscillators and they all have very interesting, unique sounds that you can get out of them. Because you can be really basic and just do like a sine wave. But just adjusting the shape is adding more harmonics into the signal and wave folding it. You have 2 options per fundamental, so from sine, triangle, saw, square wave. Each one of those has an additional method of wave folding. Increasing the shape is almost like taking off a filter. So I feel like the layout is just very performative and what you'd want to naturally grab. For instance, these shape knobs right here. I would say that these are arguably more interesting than just filtering out the top end. But the filter does have a character to it. Definitely smooth. By the way, I have nothing else added to the signal. You're listening to the output of the keyboard. And it does come with this analog delay, but that is very character-ish. I wouldn't use it for everything. We'll get to that in a bit. Yeah, it just sounds awesome. It's got tons of character. The other thing I appreciate is this VCA knob right here that I can just bring up. So it's like really easy to do drones this way. Turn up the glide. Now let's give it some echoes. Let's bring an oscillator too. Anyways, I can get lost in this really easily. So really nice having the dynamics VCA section right here to be able to make drones, bring something up really easily. The low pass gate and the dynamic section is definitely a quirky type of experience. It's initially I was like, I don't know if I like this. And then once I got more used to it, it made sense. And it adds a huge amount of character and like kind of organic-ish texture to the whole box. And I think that's the thing to highlight here when you are considering the Taiga. It's got its own thing that it wants to do. I could definitely see it not working with a lot of people. It's not a complex synth by any means, but the way the routing is and the way the patch bay, I could see it confusing a lot of people and making things just not obvious right away. Because you might see this and be like, oh, it's a regular synth, I'm gonna pick it up and jump in. And it's really a modular with a digital MIDI section and a keyboard attached to it, in my opinion. I think that's more appropriate of what it is. It's like this whole section right here is more of a convenience tool, and also having the layout more expanded than the original semi-modular box version, desktop box version. There's clearly more controls and options here as well versus the desktop version, which is nice, like an additional LFO, fine-tuning knobs for the VCOs. For me personally, that makes a big difference, and also these knobs are bigger. Talking the whole MIDI control section, it's a little strange. So if you were to record some MIDI into, say, Ableton or an MPC, and then play it back, the octave is not the same on the keys as what you get on the MIDI playback. And I don't know if that's a firmware thing that's going to get updated in the future. It's quite possible. But as it is right now, you can adjust the playback of the MIDI just by going through the octave range right here when some device is sending MIDI into the back. If you record that in, then play it back, it's probably going to be a couple octaves lower or higher, I think. Maybe that's what it was. It'll be like this, and you'll be like, whoa, what's going on? And you'll have to drop the octave on here to get the proper pitch. So it's a little strange, honestly. And that's kind of why I feel like this whole keyboard MIDI section, it feels a little bit like it's a separate section that was attached to this. I wouldn't necessarily call that a knock or a con to this guy. It's more of a quirk. I will say the keys feel good though. And I do like patching the Aftertouch into things like the shape. So we'll go Aftertouch into, actually use a shorter cable. So we'll go Aftertouch into, let's say, shape, or oscillator 2 shape. And then, what are we on right now? We're on triangle. Let's turn channel 1 all the way down. Go up a few octaves. Sometimes it doesn't activate, which is weird. I'm noticing some of the Aftertouch isn't quite activating, so it could be a bug in the firmware. And there's definitely bugs. Like for instance, if you were to hook it up to a Digitact or Electron box right now, the Taiga would basically not respond to note off messages. So it would just hold the note indefinitely, which is pretty unusable from a MIDI standpoint. I saw the desktop version got an update, and as of the recording of this, the keys version has not got that update, which I believe fixes that. Now, Pittsburgh is not like a big company by any means, so I cut them a lot of slack for this stuff because I really like what they're doing. I like the modules they've made in the past. I own a few of them as well. I own the SV1. I also have the primary oscillator, which I really like. It sounds awesome. So I'm definitely a fan of what they do. So let's talk more of these tools here. You have a preamp utility, which is really nice if you want to get some more juice or if you want to saturate or overdrive certain things. I've used that a few times. It's come in real handy, especially when patching in other gear into this system, because I've actually found the most fun integrating this keyboard with other modular gear. Like the Labyrinth video that I did and that jam, that was really cool because I had the Labyrinth using oscillator 2 and 3 to do its generative sequencing type of thing. And then I used the first oscillator as the keyboard. So I basically just patched out oscillator 2 and 3 into a separate system and then kept the Taiga keys by itself with just one oscillator. It's nice that there's 2 LFOs, but there is no way to patch in the rate. And there's technically no mult. I mean, you can mult with this mixer right here, but I do kind of like using this mixer to like mix things together. And there's no attenuators for this mixer either. So if you want to have just a little bit of, say, LFO1 mixed in with a lot of oscillator 3, you can't do that with this mixer splitter. You need an additional tool like the Make Noise Maths. And I will get to that in a moment. Probably the most polarizing thing though is this delay tool. And I think of it more as a paintbrush as opposed to a delay, because it has a distinct sound. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily like what you get out of it. I think it's really cool. I like bringing it in. But you can hear how like fuzzy it starts getting. I like sounds like that. It's like kind of lo-fi. See, that one didn't work that time, the Aftertouch. Weird. What a weird bug. You know, I'm gonna actually patch one of these envelopes. We'll take ADSR1 into the shape of oscillator 2. Take that down. And honestly, I'd like to take the Aftertouch, mix that together, and put that into the shape. So let's do that. You hear it distorting. It's got a character. You may or may not like this character. This is with the time all the way up and the regen kind of right at that edge. So I'm going to bring the time all the way down. You hear how noise, here's some noise in there. Let's bring an oscillator 1. Yeah, so this circuit's very noisy. Like, I can hear some strange things going on the top end right now. Take it off, it goes away. With that said, this just has some interesting capabilities to it. Yeah, throw some reverb on that. You can also patch into the time and extend it even further than what this is right here, the maxed out value. And it gets really grainy that way. We can actually do that with maths real quick. I'll take channel 3 of maths, which is currently doing nothing. We'll patch it into the time. Put the echoes all the way up. Now, if I increase this, now increase the attenuator right here. Let's turn the VCA up. Definitely some noise up there. Anyways, the echoes, it has a place for sure. It's definitely not your traditional delay though, so I think a lot of people could be disappointed with the echoes if they're thinking like, oh, it's got a full-on analog delay. Like, for instance, the Matriarch with that stereo delay, amazing. That thing might be one of my favorite delays, period. And that is not what's in the Taiga. It's also mono too. In fact, this whole thing is technically mono. You can patch in for a stereo path, but you'd have to forego some things and maybe add in some other modules. Speaking of modules, one of the cool things about the Taiga keys is you do have this panel right here to add additional modules for things that you think would be missing in this setup. I've heard people talking about putting another oscillator in here. I don't see that because like these oscillators are badass. The filter's pretty good. It is a bit polite, so I could see a different filter going in there that's maybe more aggressive or something that really rings out when the resonance is up. I could definitely see effects being put in here. But if I'm gonna give my honest opinion, I think the best tool to put in there really is maths. And it's for a few reasons. For one, the whole issue of wanting to mix certain things with this mixer splitter, that gets solved with maths. I patch in some higher voltage into the time for the echoes. I use maths to do that. So those are kind of boring examples why you'd put maths in there. A better example as to why you'd want to use maths is the slew rate limiter. And let me explain. So the reason why this makes a great companion into the system, adding all these harmonics into the path can be a bit much pretty fast. Now filtering them has a particular sound. Sounds like you cut off the top end. And again, I think the filter's nice, it's polite. You might need a bit more bite in there. Maths, on the other hand, can do a different approach with the slew rate limiting. And it's basically like filtering, but it's different and it sounds different. And I think it's really cool. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna patch out the entire mix. And I'm gonna put it into channel 1 of the make noise math. And channel 1 is going to be our slew rate limiter. I'm gonna patch out channel 1 as well. I'm also gonna turn that channel 1 all the way up. Then I'm gonna patch it into the preamp, which I have turned all the way down. And then I'm gonna patch out of the preamp into the filter. Okay. So let's turn up the preamp all the way. We'll stick with oscillator 2 at the moment. Maybe you go sine wave here. Crank the gain up on this guy. So I brought the rise and fall all the way counterclockwise on the maths. I've got it right in between logarithmic and exponential. I've got the preamp all the way up, a gain to 1x. Here's what it sounds like without. And then here's with. Already losing a little top end right there. I want it to soften up a bit without actually filtering this all the way down. So now if I start messing with the rise and the fall, and maybe even filter this a bit. Let's turn up the preamp gain. That sounds awesome. That's just one oscillator, by the way, that's in there. Let's bring in the first oscillator. Actually, let's take down the second oscillator. So we got this guy. Another reason for maths is to have an additional envelope, because I find that these LFOs that are patched into the shapes are okay. So I personally like to patch something else in here. Patch into shape of oscillator 1 and then cycle this. And if I want, I can patch out of the gate into the trig. So let's go back to the first channel here. Okay, I need some more gain. I just think that slew rate limiting for the high harmonics does so much character adding to this. Add in channel 2. Let's get some delay going here. Patch out of one of these LFOs to pulse the first channel of the maths, so it kind of goes in and out like this. Go LFO to triangle into the both. So this is a bit much. I'm going to put this into channel 2. Patch out of channel 2 in here, put it into at channel 1 so I can control how much. So I had mentioned some cons, some issues at the top of the video, and this is the third unit that I've gotten. So let me explain. There could be some manufacturer quality control issues going on at Create Audio, or I might have gotten unlucky multiple times in a row. But the first unit that I got, it was out of tune, or it wasn't tracking pitch correctly. And so this is something, if you do pick up a Taiga, and to be honest, this goes for any analog gear, you should probably check the tuning on the oscillators. What I found on the first unit is that all three of the oscillators were not tracking within a few cents per octave. Each C was going 10 to 20 cents out of tune and compounding per octave. So first unit, tuning problems on all three oscillators. Additionally, the tuning is different when you take off MIDI control and patch CV directly into the oscillators. So that appears to be tuned differently for the keyboard, and all three of the oscillators were tuning incorrectly to regular CV pitch as well. So first unit, tuning problems, send it back. Second unit, there was a strange 5 kilohertz noise throughout the entire system, except for the sine wave outs of the oscillators. I was in communication with Pittsburgh about this stuff also, so they were aware, and they appreciated me bringing this to light. So my second unit, some strange 5K noise throughout the system, and I believe it was actually inside the oscillators because I patched directly out of the oscillator outs into a different modular system, and I still heard the noise. But when I patched out the sine waves, I didn't hear the noise. So I'm assuming the noise was in the oscillator cores for that second unit. Third unit, everything was fine until I noticed some of the caps easily popped off. So I talked to Pittsburgh, they said they replaced the caps, no problem. But third unit was nearly perfect, which is this one, by the way, except for the fact that the caps would easily pop off. So with that said, I don't mean to scare you from considering anything from Pittsburgh right now. These are awesome products, and obviously they're manufactured overseas, so there could be some quality control issues from time to time, but that can happen with any company, technically. And again, I don't want to discourage you from considering picking up one of these. What I am encouraging you though, is to double check things when you do get it. Check your tuning, just make sure it's within 8 cents per octave type of thing. Throw it up on a graph as well and make sure there's no weird noise in the system. And yeah, you should be good. With that said, I am also very interested in the Voltage Lab 2. I've seen a bunch of videos on that and that looks very tasty. Some of you might be wondering why get the Taiga if you're interested in the Voltage Lab 2. In my opinion, they're two different systems. Also the fact that this has 3 oscillators and keys versus a 2 oscillator machine with an interesting sequencer. But I think the Voltage Lab 2 is going to be more of a pure modular type of experience versus this being like a hybrid performance keys, twist knobs while you play melodies type of thing. Obviously there's crossover. No doubt about it. But yeah, that's my thoughts. That's my experience over the past few months with the Taiga keys. I think it's an awesome keyboard. It is definitely quirky. It's not for everyone, and you should definitely check your unit just in case there's some issues, because you don't want to be a few months down the road and then realize you got like, some strange tuning issues with your oscillators. Although you could pop the unit out and tune it yourself. That guide, I don't believe is online yet. They said they're still working on that manual to tune the keys version internally. But everything I've done with it so far, I've really enjoyed, and I think it has a unique, interesting analog character to it that I appreciate. Multiple times throughout this video, I got lost in the sonics of this machine. If you enjoyed this content, a like and subscribe goes a long way. Also, if you plan on picking up a Taiga keys or any synth for that matter, consider using my affiliate links below. They directly support the channel. And yeah, thanks for making it to the end. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time for another one. Peace.